sorry. Just trying to fucking stave off some of the stress that work gives me. Alright, Crash Twinsanity. What do you have in store for me? Twin Slam, Humility Skate, Spank, Twin Throw, Roller Brawl, Censored? Oh wow, an example of Rule 34. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Seriously though, I don't consider myself to be a prude. A change in tone is definitely how I would describe this one. Maybe to apologize for the sameness of Wrath of Cortex, Twinsanity raised the bar by introducing an open world and having a wackier tone compared to the originals. This was met with mixed reception by many critics, with some praising the innovations the game made to the Crash Bandicoot franchise, while others criticized it for game-breaking bugs and a change in tone being a representation of the Crash Bandicoot series running out of ideas. In fact, this one is a base breaker for the fan base, some saying that this is the best game of the franchise, while others saying it's the worst. So where do I stand? Well, to give a bit of my personal history with this game, I remember seeing trailers like this,
"The fur is gonna hit the fan,"
and thinking that it was the coolest thing that Crash and Cortex were working together. Sadly, I was never able to beat it and remember getting stuck at the Madame Amberley boss fight. So considering this is technically my first playthrough, I guess it allows me to look at this one with a fresh perspective. So, which side of the aisle will I lean? The best Crash Bandicoot game? Or the worst Crash Bandicoot game? Or somewhere in the middle? Well, let's find out, shall we? Motherfucker, you start all of your videos the same. Like, can't you be original for once? Well, this is my video. And I'm the one calling the shots. What? Well, I mean, it's like maybe people would stick around longer if you like change it up a little bit. Or, I don't know, go get a life. Like, why don't you like try to change yourself instead of making, I don't know, the same old shit over and over and over again. Pardon me as I fuck this bastard up. Yeah. How'd you like that, you stupid son of a bitch? I have no idea where I was going with that. The changes Twinsanity makes to the franchise are noticeable from the start. Yep, it's an a cappella soundtrack, done by none other than the group Spiral Mouth. And to be completely honest, I don't think all of it is bad. Sometimes it can be a bit of a guilty pleasure. I mean, songs like Uka Uka's theme really stand out. However, at the same time, with all the lips flapping, the mouths swishing, and the annoying, incoherent noises, this soundtrack can be a bit of a pain to listen to. Yeah, so the music is a bit of a hit or a miss for me, although it is a bit of a questionable choice considering that it is an extreme makeover compared to what this series normally had. As for the rest of the game, yeah, well then, okay I guess. From cross-dressing Cortex to Madame Amberley's tits, this definitely set a change in tone, and it's not more obvious than in the character of, you guessed it, Cortex. Previously, he had always been a devious villain. Sure, many of his plans consisted of simply taking over the world. However, he was never one who was over the top or hammy.
Crash, I have discovered that the opposition is being masterminded by Dr. Nitrous Brio, the inventor of the Evolvo Ray. Brio was responsible for our misunderstanding.
Twinsanity evolves him so that he's a complete buffoon. Not only does he lose his credibility as a villain, but he basically becomes an utter butt monkey for Crash. He gets skated on, kicked in the arse, gets thrown around by Crash, and so much more. So yeah, he's the one who gets the most distinct change. However, even Crash himself gets the raw end of the stick of this tonal shift. He has a goofy smile pasted on his face, so he has very little expression outside of the Red Eye Studios CGI cutscenes. Also, remember Crash's iconic whoa whenever he got hit? Yeah, well, that's basically scrapped for something that's a bit more subdued. Right, so Crash basically is barely an entity in this game, and the same can be said for the all-star cast of Coco and Aku Aku. Coco mainly just spends her time getting zapped into 2 scenes she's in, while Aku Aku gets his ass handed to him along with Uka Uka by the evil twins. All the focus given to them throughout the series has been taken away in favor of telling a story about Cortex and retconning a past relationship with some parrots in order to tell a narrative about the effects of Freudian excuse and how past actions can affect the present. Well, I guess we're transitioning into the story. Brace yourselves. The story on the outset may seem simple enough. Crash and Cortex need to work together to stop an even bigger threat in the evil twins. However, putting this under a microscope and dissecting it truly shows that Twinsanity's narrative is, at least in its current form, a big hot mess. So strictly speaking, the pacing is all over the place. The game only introduces the evil twins only after quite a bit of filler. First, Cortex tries to trick Crash into coming into one of his cleverly designed traps. When that doesn't work, they immediately go through a tumble and rock slide rumble. Har har. Eventually they make it out, and it is only there that the evil twins appear out of nowhere. Like, literally out of nowhere. I mean, I guess the developers quickly realized that we were already 4 or 5 hours into the game, and they still hadn't introduced the villains. So, there we have it. Have them show up abruptly and introduce the plan. Phew. Thank God that we made it out of that cavern. Coward, you fool. Awesome might of the evil one. Okay, so I traversed through a long-ass cavern, and then all of a sudden the main antagonist decides to reveal himself. Like, out of nowhere. Well, you know what, never mind. It's like the writers of the game just had me just sort of come out early and sort of abruptly like this, so, yeah, never mind, I'll just really go on. Although it doesn't stop there. There are many moments where the game will force the plot to come to a screeching halt and take a detour for a minor inconvenience. For instance, Crash and Cortex need to use the Psychotron to reach the 10th dimension to face off against the evil twins. However, Coco comes out of the blue and kicks Cortex's balls, causing him to, I guess, malfunction the Psychotron. So to fix it, they have to go through a 5-hour trek through the Academy of Evil just to find Cortex's niece Nina, who is at one point hinted to be his daughter.
My daughter, niece!
Not only does it make Coco's overall involvement questionable, but it also makes it blatantly obvious that the developers are trying to pad out the game. Granted, from some of the artwork of the cut content, it looks like Traveler's Tales maybe had an even longer Academy of Evil segment in mind. However, the fact that the 10th dimension is squeezed for 1/5 of the game towards the end does make it feel as if the Academy is lengthier than it should be. Maybe this isn't my right to say this, but what would have been better is have the Psychotron work from the start and make Crash and Cortex go on an odyssey, hopping through dimensions as they chase the evil twins. And it sounds like this is what they initially planned, But, as Cortex says,
We ran out of time.
and then there's another moment when Aku Aku and Uka Uka reunite and set their differences aside so that they can take out the evil twins. Considering that we've always seen them as sworn enemies, this could be interesting to see where they could take this. But no, of course they fail almost immediately after they set this up, since if they succeeded in beating the twins, we wouldn't have a plot. And they're defeated off screen. It might be a minor nitpick, but how cool would it have been to see these masks literally duke it out with the twins? Now, I'm not going to be beating around the bush any longer. Every review has covered how this game was rushed. Therefore, there was a lot of content cut. However, whether this would have given the game a more coherent plot is questionable. Certainly it does bridge some gaps like this one frame explaining how Entropy was able to figure out the details of the treasure. Apparently Entranced was supposed to make an appearance, and Evil Coco was supposed to join her brother, Evil Crash, in the 10th dimension. However, if all the cut content were added back in, and I mean everything, would the game run the risk of being overstuffed? Yes, it is true that the current version of Twinsanity is a skinny down version with a story unfocused and all over the map, but some of the things I hear, like Cortex going into Coco's brain and Engine coming back to attack the airship, may have made the experience bloated. So yeah, the game's levels are a bit padded to make the story longer, but at least the time you spend in them is worth it. In Wrath of Cortex, the game seemingly suffered a lot from the fact that it kept being generic with its level designs. A snow level was just a simple snow level that could take place anywhere. However, Twinsanity's levels are on par with Warped in terms of creativity. Gargoyles and robots are scattered throughout the Academy of Evil, while flying penguins inhabit the Iceberg Lab. It all prevents Twinsanity from adopting the plainness that Wrath of Cortex had, and creates more sophisticated levels than what we typically got in Crash Bandicoot. And the open world of Twinsanity supplements all of this. Although it does seem to switch back and forth between being opened and being 2.5D, you do get the sense of largeness with these levels, especially when looking up at the skyboxes. Oh look, the twin sons of Tatooine! Traveler's Tales also made it feel as if there was a lot to do through the gem collecting, so instead of breaking crates like in previous titles, you now have to look for the colored gems scattered throughout the open world. Although, most of the puzzles involve nitro crates, but there are some interesting ones, like how on Twinsanity Island you have to use a cannon to activate exclamation crates. So while the exploration isn't terribly deep, Twinsanity still encourages you to look through the crooks and crannies. I just wish that there were more of these sections, considering that around 60% of Twinsanity is following a 2.5D path. Another difference that Twinsanity makes compared to the rest of the Crash Bandicoot games is that this is the first Crash game to not use a warp room, so the navigation is kind of like Jak and Daxter, in which all the levels feel interconnected. What hampers this, though, is that the save points are separated far apart from one another. So, say you get a game over. The game will literally send you 30 minutes back from where you died. While I never got that many game overs, I did come across a Coco Death Touch glitch. I touched Coco and died, and the game sent me outside of the Iceberg Lab. However, when I tried to enter the room with the Psychotron, the cutscene wouldn't play. That's kinda funny, I thought, so I wandered a little bit further and stepped onto the platform that I thought was leading me to the blimp. Instead, I was greeted with this cutscene.
There, to the sea, I tell you! Our salvation floats upon the briny blue!
My jaw literally dropped when I realized just how far back the game had sent me just because I touched Coco.
That's okay, I came prepared.
Thankfully, I had a save that began in Classroom Chaos, so I was able to continue on from there. Take that, incomplete game! Even you could not stop me from collecting all the footage I needed. And this incomplete nature is further shown into multiple different characters the game introduces as playable, because, well, first of all, the back of the box says that there are 4 playable characters, when in fact there are only 3. I always assumed that this was meant to indicate Crash and Cortex together was a 4th player, but no, it was actually Mecha Bandicoot, who apparently had the one level he was in scrapped. Or at least, that's what someone on Reddit mentioned. Either that or Coco Bandicoot was also supposed to be playable in this game as well. Anyway, besides Crash, you get to play as Cortex and Nina. Cortex generally plays like a third-person shooter. He can activate switches with his ray gun to move platforms, and there are many instances where you'll be locked in a room and have to shoot a number of enemies before you can proceed. Unfortunately, not only is there a single real level where you can play as him before the final boss, but they don't really do anything too creative when it comes to how Cortex's gameplay is utilized. There could have been interesting puzzles where you have to activate switches in a particular order instead of just using a platform to go from one point to the other. Am I sounding too critical? I probably am, because next up you have Nina's gameplay, whose first appearance was supposed to be in Crash Nitro Kart, but when that was scrapped, ended up making her debut in Crash Purple, which made Traveler's Tales very upset. Anyway, her gameplay is identical to Crash, minus the fact that she has a bionic metal arm that allows her to swing shot from distant places and unleash a long punch. I do like how in one sense she builds upon Crash's gameplay while still feeling different. However, similar to Cortex, the only time you'll be playing as her is the Academy of Evil and a final boss. It's sad really, considering that both Cortex and Nina have a lot of potential to be great to play as, but unfortunately end up feeling underutilized. And then there's Crash and Cortex's gameplay, otherwise known as the Twinsane gameplay. Wait, is that right? Oh, so I guess they really just call it Crash and Cortex. Well, I'll just call it Twinsane gameplay. The interesting thing is how this manifests in a lot of different types. First, you have the Roller Brawl. This is the Atmosphere gameplay from Wrath of Cortex. However, unlike Wrath of Cortex where there were so many parts that involved you moving at a snail's pace depending on the situation, the Roller Brawl has you constantly moving, only stopping for a short period of time for an elevator or an acid shooter, but not like Wrath of Cortex where sometimes it pitted you against some lame obstacle or whatnot. Then you have the Dog'Emoc stages. These levels basically have you trying to navigate Cortex around a 2.5D stage while taking out obstacles for him. These sections are fun with the game forcing you to quickly react to keep Cortex from running to the nitros or bear traps. Sometimes, Cortex will need to do the same for you, so some teamwork is involved in this as you help each other get through the gauntlet of obstacles. Although, I must mention that these transitions are very awkward. Like, at one point, Evil Crash is chasing Cortex, and when it's all over, Cortex just says,
Come along!
as if nothing happened. And then there's the Humiliscate. This mainly occurs when Cortex is in a feeling of desperation to get somewhere quickly, and Crash finds a solution by, kicking his ass and riding him like a snowboard. Words fail me on this one, other than that these two scenes are exactly identical. You go down a path and sometimes Cortex has a tendency to bounce off the terrain, leading to an untimely death. But at the same time, the game does give room for performing stunts like going into caves blocked by a wall of TNTs to achieve a gem. Maybe this style could have gone for something like Tony Hawk Pro Skater or Jak 2, where you go around in an open skate park to do tricks. The potential is definitely there, considering you'll be going off of grind rails and ramps. However, it's mainly limited to sliding down this terrain. Finally, there's Crash and Cortex tethered by a crystal. Now this is probably the most developed gameplay style of all of them, considering that you'll be using this style more than once or twice in a plethora of creative ways. In one instance, you'll have to take out several worms hoarding wampa trees by using the Twin Slam. In another part, you'll have to throw him over to another place to activate switches. It all just comes together to make a cohesive setup and kind of reminds me of the LEGO games, where you have to make use of different characters' abilities to clear up obstacles. So Twinsanity's gameplay? Overall, I'd say that it's very decent, but it doesn't quite go above and beyond. While I do like the open worlds and differing gameplay styles, there could have been more of them since they usually only show up once or twice. I'll give credit where credit is due, considering that I do like the fact that this game at least tries something different compared to Wrath of Cortex. Although, thinking about the rest of the game and how most of it felt rushed and slapped together, maybe not too unlike this review, kind of made me reevaluate where I stand with this one. In fact, to my knowledge, the world's record speedrun is 14 minutes, so that's kind of like Enter the Dragonfly. And I've never played Enter the Dragonfly, by the way, in the case that you can get to the end by exploiting a glitch. Unpolished is definitely the word I describe Twinsanity, but for everything that is there, it's fairly decent all things considered. I'd probably say that it's better than Crash 2, but not as good as CTR, Warped, or for that matter, the original Crash Bandicoot. However, I guess the question still stands, will a remake of this game with all the cut content fix some of the issues I had? And as I've hinted earlier, I don't think a remake would be necessary, considering that if all the cut content was added back in, well, it would end up feeling like a completely different game. Now, a new game using the Twinsanity cut content? That's what I want. Wait. So, Crash 4 is the Twinsanity remake, according to the Crash Twinsanity iceberg. I don't know how true that is, but okay, I guess. Anyway, that was Crash Twinsanity, a game with a rushed development cycle that plagued the final product. A game with so much potential that could have been reached if they had just been given more time. A game that...
Okay, we get the point.
Well, with all that being said, I'm Dave Reviews. Thanks for getting this far into video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, or check out some of my other videos. And, I guess with all that being said, I hope you all have an exquisite day.